Hey, there's somebody. Ian's Guitar Shack. What's up, man? Let's see if anybody else jumps in here. This is kind of a weird time to do a live stream, but I figured what the hell. Time surfing alien. There's a couple of you. So I'm told that if when it comes to live streams, if you go live, they will come. I don't know. I guess we'll see how true that is. Lots of hate on. So, yeah, due to time restrictions tomorrow, I decided to do this today, and the video that was going to go live today, I decided to move that back until tomorrow. So, because we're hopefully tomorrow, fingers crossed, we're going to finally have our first band practice, and it's going to cut into the live stream time a little bit more than I had hoped, but it is what it is. So, and need practice. So I'm gonna spend the morning rehearsing, going over my parts, and then spend the afternoon at practice, and then coming home. Nope, no singer yet. Still, I mean, I've got a. I asked a buddy of mine that I know would be really really good for it. And he at first he was kind of like, yeah, I said I would, but I'm already got this band going on, and this, that, and the other, plus my kids got this, and that, and my wife, and he's just got a lot going on, But then later on, he came back and asked me, he's like, "Who all's playing in this band? What kind of stuff are you doing?" So I told him, and I shared him my set list, and he asked a couple more questions. He's like, sent me the thumbs up emoji, and which I assume meant that he's thinking about it, but he hasn't quite decided. I honestly I don't expect him to. I think it's going to prove to be him trying to cram too much into so many hours in the day. So and I get that. I certainly don't want that. I wouldn't want anybody to be in that position either. That would suck. So, and I told these guys, we all agreed, from the beginning that this band was not going to take over anybody's lives. We all have families and other responsibilities and things like that. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens, and we'll just see what happens. So, the right person will come along, whoever that may be. I don't know who it is, but I'm confident right person will come along. And if it doesn't, then it just wasn't meant to be anyway. And I will go back to living my life the way I've been living it. So, see who else is there? There's 10 people viewing, but nobody, not too many of you in the chat. There's Jeff7 there in the chat. He said it's Friday. It is Friday. It is Friday. Who doesn't like Fridays? Step up to the mic and sing. Trust me, you don't want me. You don't want me as your singer. If you think I'm a shitty guitar player, you do not want me as your singer. I promise. I promise you that. Yeah, that would be bad. That would be bad. Give us I can't. It's really. I mean, I struggle even humming background melodies, backing melodies and vocals or anything. I mean, I've done so much. Uh, I think just with cigarettes and vaping and uh, you know, among other stupid things I've done in my life. It's difficult for me to even raise my voice, to a certain degree. So maybe that's just my vocal cords being out of shape. I don't know, but we'll see. Let's see. Stay Curious says Robert Simmons, the bridge action, neck length, and string gauge is similar. Why is it some guitars are harder to bend notes than others? Is it a fret issue? Some that I can't. I mean, usually it's one of those three things that's causing the problem. I mean, if it's I mean, usually it's string. It's string gauge. The heavier strings are have always been harder to bend. Go play an acoustic. An acoustic with lights on it. A light. Lights on an acoustic are 12s. And most acoustic guitars just don't have the same action that electric guitars do. And hell, even when I've played electric guitars, unless it's tuned down to like drop W, if somebody's got an electric like a Les Paul or something set up in standard with 12s on it, or something like that, I have a real hard time bending those. I mean, it's just string gauge. You guys know I'm not a real big firm believer in heavy strings anyway. I mean, the lighter the better for that reason. Why I work so hard to play guitar. Wayne Slager says, "Record the band practice. That'd be awesome to watch." I'm gonna wait until there's actually something worth recording. Because this will be the first time that currently the four of us will have ever played together. I mean, I've known all of these guys for years. They've all been friends of mine for many, many years. Two of them used to buy from me. Used to buy all their gear from me when I was a manager at Guitar Center. And the third one was a fellow manager with me at Guitar Center. So, I mean, I've known all these guys for many, many years, but it's one of those you just never know how it's gonna go until it goes. So I mean, I've learned to quit, putting any kind of expectations, good or bad, on anything until we actually see what it is. What it is, what it's gonna be, what everybody's strengths are. Who can do what, who can't do what, that sort of thing. Go live at practice, providing it's cool with everyone. I might do that one of these. If it takes off and we start doing well, I may do that. I may do that one of these days. That would be cool. That might be cool. It'll sound like dog shit on a cell phone, but if you guys are willing to tolerate it. I've never understood people that go live, or I see people that they'll set up their cell phone on like their stage monitor or something, and point it at themselves, and then hit record or go live or whatever it is, while they're playing a gig or something. And I've it's cool to show everybody what you're doing, and that you're having fun and all that kind of stuff. But from an audio standpoint, cell phone microphones ain't exactly the way to go for that. Who knows? We'll see. One thing at a time. First, we got to get everybody in the same room and make sure everybody can play together. Pardon me. Anybody got any new gigs coming up, or starting any new projects or anything like that? Stay Curious says, I never realized the Les Paul was a signature guitar until I saw your video. Les Paul is actually the oldest signature guitar. As it says, don't have it. Yeah, it does. Right, there's the man's name right there on the headstock. So, and in 1961, when they converted it to the SG, when they changed the design to the SG, They were still calling it the Les Paul, and Les Paul hated himself. He hated that guitar and demanded that they take his name off of it. That's why they changed the name to the SG. So, which is one of the cooler stories of guitar lore, in my opinion. I sold a 61, a legit 61 Les Paul in like my first year at my first year Guitar Center. I sold a 61 Les Paul. Another guy bought it and I sold it. God, what did we sell? I think it was like sold it for like 50. It was like 15 grand or something like that. Seems like it should, looking back, seems like it should have sold for a lot more than that. And yeah, I'm sure now it is worth a lot more than that. But oh well. The memories. Let's see. My knees hurts here. Ian's Guitar Shack says you can connect a mic to the phone. Yeah, you can. And there are, they do make iOS mics, which I suppose it would probably be a better way to go. I didn't think about that, but yeah, I don't know. Like I said, we'll see. First things first. Let's see if this band actually, turns into something worthwhile. I've seen so many of these things. You start to get going, and then all of a sudden they fizzle out, and they never get off the ground, and you can't find the right person. You can't, if you can't find the singer, you can't find a drummer, you can't find whatever it is, or there's just personality conflict, or stuff like that. It happens. So I've known all of these guys for years, but there's a couple of them I think that may have never met. So let's see, where are we? I'm still in the hunt for a bass rig amp that can keep up with my drums. Looks like a 50-watt combo will work just fine. That's the thing. It's real difficult to answer that question because again, a lot of people seem to correlate wattage with volume in or decibels, and that's not necessarily the case because that 20-watt Randall that's sitting there behind me is a hell of a lot louder than a little 20-watt practice amp. Like a Line 6 practice amp or something like that you might buy. So wattage is not all created equal, unfortunately. So it just depends on the combo that you're looking at. Ampeg might be a good way to go. Maybe realistically, if I were gonna go by wattage, I would say at least 100, if not more. But again, every amp's different. So. Alex2112 says, "Good afternoon, Robert. Just curious. You said you had a guitar with a sustainer pickup in it. Which one is it?" It's the my Schecter Sun Valley Super Shredder. That here, let me see if I can find a link, and I'll drop it in the shopping tab for you guys to check out. How about that? This shopping tab is pretty convenient. I'm kind of digging this for live streams. God damn it. Fucking Guitar Center's website always has that damn window, the bubble thing that pops up. SVSS. Let's see if they have it. Yeah, there it is right there. Bam. Schecter SVSS. That is the one. It currently sells for $9.99. I think I paid it was like $100 cheaper when I bought mine. It was before everything skyrocketed. But yeah, it's a cool guitar, and that Sustainiac is a fun toy to have in it. Time serving alien says just practicing sweep picking, incorporating major 7 arpeggio. I can't sweep pick worth shit. Never been able to. Of course, I've never had the patience to actually just sit down and woodshed it. Jim, my buddy Jim Woodard's here. What's up, dude? Hope all is well there in your part of the world. I am, just thought I'd hop on here and hang out with you guys here for a little bit before I go start my weekend. Let's see. Finally got the West Avalon amp head recapped and retuned. Gonna drag it over the empty bowling alley above my church and fire it up tomorrow. Interesting. Cool. Retubed. My knee church says I am my own entire band, bass and guitar and looper pedals, me behind the drums. If you can get away with, honestly, if I know a few people that, have been, playing gigs. I got one friend in particular. He's from Jersey, since moved back out to Jersey. And, pardon me, I'm dealing with some bronchitis or something. I thought it was about over because yesterday I was feeling a lot better, and today it's starting to come back. His every gig that he played, he was a one-man show. He had 2 Godin electric acoustic guitars. I think one was a nylon string, one was a steel string, and he had 2 Boss. I think he was still using the old RC20 looper pedals. 2 Boss dual looper pedals, and that's it. He made all the percussion noises with his mouth and the microphone, and tapping on the body of the guitar, and stuff like that. And then he would build the loop and build the song, and he was a great singer and a great performer too. Obviously, spent years doing it because it was all original stuff that he'd written as well. And one of his favorite parts about doing it that way was that and it was a hell of a lot. It was very little gear that he had to worry about loading in and loading out and setting up and all that stuff. And more importantly, he didn't have to split the payout with anybody. So paid a sound guy if there was one, and keeps the rest. Let's see. Robert, I have a 20-something-year-old Fender Bronco practice amp that has worked great. Nobody ever talks about using one. Any reason why? Fender, the Bronco? Boy, I don't even know that I remember that one. That might be why nobody talks about it. I know the Bronco bass. Looks like this little 1x8 15-watt little tweed thing. If that's the one, I don't know, man. It looks like it might be a tube amp. The one I'm looking at is what you have. So I don't know. I mean, it might just, you may have a sleeper there. You may have a sleeper amp. I mean, hell, if you like it, if you like it, who cares if anybody talks about it? You're probably better off with people not talking about it, because if you ever need another one, they're still cheap. Wayne Slager says, work took over my ability to play a lot. Unfortunately, I haven't played in a little while. It sucks at corporate world. Took away from my playing. Not happy about it. Yeah, and I experienced a lot of that too. So, the real world kind of cut into my my music stuff. Between but the real world, just having to go to work and pay bills and family and all that kind of stuff. So and those things come first. So You know, and I've never made enough money playing music that that it's been my only source of income. So, you know, I've always had to have another job. But that's the case with most musicians. Let's see, Ricky Compton's here. My knee shirt says, "What are your thoughts on acoustic bass cabs? GC has those for decent prices. I think they're actually pretty good, to be honest with you, especially for the price that you're gonna pay. I like I'm assuming you're talking about the acoustic brand stuff, which I happen to have one right here behind me. That's the old B450 combo. They don't make that one anymore, but it's I think they make good stuff. You know, I always liked the sound of them. They always sounded good, and admittedly, I bought them when I bought all that stuff when I was a GC employee. So I got it all really really cheap. But yeah, but I sold a lot of them when I was there too. I mean, I think they make pretty decent stuff for the price. So I had one of their acoustic combos there for a long time too, but it sat there and collected dust for long enough that I decided to get rid of it. Let's see. Jim Woodard says, "You're a great help in me getting a lot of gear I use every week on stage and every day in practice. Thanks for all you do." I appreciate that. Unfortunately, circumstances are what they are. I don't, and finding another job in the EMI business is, without having to relocate anyway, is proving to be pretty difficult. So, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to land yet. I've been firing out resumes and gotten very, very few responses, and all the responses that I have gotten have all been, you know, thank you for your interest, but. Do you have a Patreon yet? Yes, I do, actually. The link to the Patreon, link to my Patreon is down in the description of pretty much all of my videos. I admit I haven't been very good about updating it, but I don't know. If enough people show an interest, maybe I'll start doing that a little bit more often. And I don't know. I need to put some more thought into that, if I'm being honest. But yes, there is. I do have a Patreon set up. Link is in the description. Thank you for reminding me of that, Jim, because I always forget to talk about that. Wolfgang DeVries says, "Don't know. I think I'll start my first band when I'm 64." Never too late, man. You use Guitar Shack and you look in the job hunt. Yeah, well, like I just said, a lot of sent out a lot of resumes, but nothing sticking yet. I did have a pretty decent phone interview with a company this week. I don't know that it's going to be the right fit or not. I mean, there's still a lot of logistical stuff that needs to be worked out, and and it's a fairly new division, or fairly new, but yeah, I mean, kind of, fairly new position or division, with a pretty well known company, but they're just now, there's a lot of things that need to that are going to be a kind of a figure it out as they go kind of thing, and so we kind of need to figure out if I'm going to be a good fit for them, and if I need to figure out if they're going to be a good fit for me. So I've gotten the age where I can't play anything but noiseless pickups in my Strats. If you play high gain 60 cycle hum, is too much. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't. I guess I don't use as much gain as I used to. So, I guess that's a big part of it. I used to just crank the gain on everything, but I don't use anywhere near as much as I used to. I think I'm more after. I'm after a lot more clarity these days, so I guess that's why 60 cycle hum doesn't really bother me too much anymore. I'm not hitting the front end with. I'm not hitting, running single coils into, flamethrower distortion anymore. Uh, I don't and won't ever play outside my home. I'm taking advantage of being able to play loud while I can. Nothing wrong with that either. Jim, plugging the plugging the channel for me in the chat. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Robert, what's your thoughts on a Randall Diablo 100-watt tube head? Thinking of picking one up. Well, I've got that. I've got my 20-watt Randall Diablo here right behind me. I've had that one for a long time now. I think they're great amps. I think they sound great. You know, they're a little dark sounding, or at least they can be, particularly on the gain channel. But beyond that, they're fantastic amps. I mean, I don't know how they got the clean channel on those things to sound as good as they do. You know, which is really the main reason why I bought mine. A clean channel's phenomenal. Sounds like a Fender. Yeah, no, I dig them. I wish that they weren't jacked up. You know, the prices where those things weren't jacked up to what are they, $2,000 or something stupid. You know, because I mean Randall's all but dead at this point anyway. I mean they got bought out by an investment company, and the investment company, they raised all the prices just to try to make as much money on the remaining stock that they have left. But I don't think they really care how they really don't care how fast they sell it. And I mean, they're just, my knowledge that they don't have anything, they don't any new designs, they don't have anybody working on any new designs or anything like that. I mean, once what is out there is gone, they're gone. So, which is sad because that brand has been around for eons. Oilman TV says, howdy from Greenfield, Indiana. Not too far from here. Have you made any of your own recordings, complete songs? I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on what you would call complete. I mean, there's a few. Honestly, most of the stuff that I've recorded has all been for YouTube videos. If I'm being completely honest, I really don't enjoy recording that much at all. I find it to be a huge, tedious pain in the ass. And, I do it because I have to. But, there's some people that enjoy sitting down and recording and, writing songs and all that kind of thing. A lot of people find that therapeutic. I do not. I kind of, if I had my choice, the therapeutic side of guitar for me would be playing out live. That's really what I enjoy doing more than anything. Recording's great. It's a lot of people really enjoy it. And I guess there are aspects of it that I personally also do enjoy, but but it's from being honest, it's not my favorite thing in the world to do. Alexander, what line of business are you in? I've been in the MI business, musical instrument business, for the last 15 years, for the most part. Selling guitars and amps and recording gear and PA gear and drums and basses and everything that you can possibly think of. So that's the industry that I'm in. And unfortunately, to find a decent job in that industry is getting harder and harder every single year. The one I had was one of the best jobs to have in the industry, and then apparently even that one wasn't. The powers that be felt that wasn't cutting the mustard anymore. So, Robert, why don't you consider Sweetwater for employment? Because unfortunately, that would require me moving to Fort Wayne, and Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I really fucking hate Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's not that far from here. It's about an hour and a half. It's about an hour and a half north. So I mean, it's not that far, but it is a different city, and it's I don't like Fort Wayne. You know, I mean, I'm a suburban, I'm a big city suburban guy. You know, it's really where I've lived most of my life is, suburbs of a big city. You know, and Fort Wayne is not much of a big city. You know, you can drive from one end to the other of it in about 10 or 15 minutes. So, yeah, maybe 20. But I mean, regardless, it's not like here in Indianapolis it'd take you an hour and a half to get from one end to the other. Nowadays, anyway. Shit, when I lived in Houston, it was two and a half to 3 hours to drive across town. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to go work for Sweetwater, but but like I said, there it's logistically, and that's the other. I can't justify putting my house up, and set, up, and selling my house, and in one of the best counties, one of the best counties to raise a family in the country, the entire country, to go, to move up Fort Wayne. Yeah, and the truth is, the other thing is, my wife has a, both, we both have family here. My wife in particular, and she's got a job that she really enjoys. I mean, I would never ask her to leave for my sake. So I'm sorry you're in this position. Well, I am too, but such is the way the world works sometimes. You know, I learned. I'm not going to get into details, but I learned a few other things about my former company. Since like right, as I was leaving and right after I left, that I it's probably for the best. So it's probably for the best. Hmm. Jeff T says, I guess they stopped making the Bronco in 2001. Only ran for about 7 years. 15-watt solid state, 2 channel. Sounds great and seems to have kept its value. If I like I said, if the one I was looking at earlier is, I still get the tab open. Here, let me share my screen with you guys. If that's the one, I mean, GC's selling that for $300. Now I don't, and without looking at, doing any research of my own on it, I don't know if that's a good price on it or not. But but I got to assume that if they put it up for $300, I got to assume somebody looked at something somewhere and saw them selling for that much or around there. I don't know that Guitar Center's used gear pricing is as accurate as it once was. Honestly, it seems to not be in a lot of instances. I think they're kind of high on a lot of shit, hoping. I don't know if they're just hoping they can get more for it. I don't know. I've been out of the Guitar Center used gear market for a decade now, so I don't know what guidelines they're following for any of that stuff these days. But assuming that one is accurate, at least fairly accurate, I would say that you are correct. Yeah. Sweetwater's pretty far from me, but I've heard working there is not great for a lot of people. I've heard I've heard both. I've heard a lot of people. Some people I know a lot of people that work there, and most of them seem to love it. And I know a few people that a few other people that worked there, or, worked there in the past, and some said it was, matter of fact, one of my former coworkers used to work there, and he said it was The job was great, but he hated living in Fort Wayne. And a couple of other people said it was okay, but it had its downfalls, like a lot of other MI gigs have, or a lot of other gigs period have. You know, let's see. Mitchell says, long time sub, love all the content. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your for subscribing to the channel, and I'm glad you've enjoyed the content. There's been a lot of it lately because I've had a lot of time on my hands. Alex 2112, why not start your own guitar shop out of your house? I've seen other people do it. Well, to do that, even like an e-commerce thing, there's still a lot of overhead, and not only is there overhead, but there's also there's a storage problem, as well. You got to have somewhere to keep inventory, and I don't have that. Not without clearing out another bedroom or something, and my wife ain't going for that. So there's no way I'm going to be able to sell her on that. And the other problem, or not the problem, but the other thing is, it takes a lot of time to ramp up, and not just acquire inventory, but you got to acquire it, at prices that you can actually make some money on. So yeah, Jim said I got a new Patreon member. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Yeah, guys, if you want to support the channel, there's definitely all kinds of ways to do that. Links down in the description. This video, which should be a description somewhere, and or if it's not, it will be after this. We end the live stream and it goes to regular video content on the channel, but it's also on all the other video links. So video descriptions, that is. Ian's Guitar Shack says, I haven't seen Mitch Gallagher lately on Sweetwater video. I can't speak to that, man. I'll be honest, I don't follow Sweetwater's channel at all. I worked for a competitor for a long time, so. In the 80s, I had an old school Fender Bronco. I think it was tubes with about 6 watts with an 8-inch speaker. The originals are going for ridiculous prices. It doesn't surprise me. Old, especially if they're old USA made tube, Fender tube amps. There's always going to be a market for those, man. They're always going to be popular. There's always going to be Marshall, old Marshalls, or or any Marshall tube amp is always going to be popular. There's some things that are just always going to be popular. Gibsons are always going to be popular. Fenders are always going to be popular. Martins, Taylors, PRS. Stuff like that. They're just always going to be popular. Jim Warder says, just order a new Dan Electro 12.6 string from Sweetwater. I'm not using GC except locally anymore. I was going to buy a house down your way when I was going to work in Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne's airport about 12 years ago was more like a bus stop. That is also true. I just talked to somebody just the other day that that's one thing when Fort Wayne does have an interstate running through it. I-69 does run through it, but the airport is it's more like an airfield, like a private airfield. There's most people in Fort Wayne, they're better off driving 2.5 hours to Indy or Chicago and flying out of one of those places. So, and that's another thing. I've got a lot of family that's out of state, Texas, Alabama, among other places. I've got a lot. So we fly sometimes. We also fly for vacations. And I don't want to drive another 2.5 hours to the airport You know, the next time we want to go take a vacation to the tropics or something, that would suck. God, that would suck. Hmm. Yeah, you know. And also, it's farther north, and the weather. It's only an hour and a half north, but the weather is actually a lot colder up there in the winter. No, yeah, I don't think Fort Wayne's for me. My e-shirt says I can't get out of my neighborhood in under 15 minutes. All we do is just sit in traffic. You must live in that sounds like Georgetown. My parents lived in Georgetown in Washington D.C. there for a while, and that's what it was like there. I mean, it was not only bumper to bumper traffic, but everybody parked on the street, which made it even harder. God forbid you get stuck behind a delivery truck. God forbid the delivery truck has to reaches his destination, because they don't have any choice but to stop right in the middle of the street and hold up traffic while they're making their delivery. I mean, it's a pain in the ass is what it is. And I mean, it would take us last time we were there before they moved out of there. I mean, it would took us 15-20 minutes just to get out of the damn neighborhood to get to the M Street or wherever it was we were going. I see why so many people walk and take the subway and public transportation, all that stuff in DC, because it's so much more of a pain in the ass to drive. Jim Woodard said, "I live in Chesapeake, Virginia, just close enough to get things, and small enough that I'm in a nice neighborhood." We've kicked around Virginia Beach area. I don't know what real estate's like out there, but we have considered relocating. If it's for the right opportunity. If it's for the right opportunity, we might do it. But Sweetwater should have set up in Indy. That's a shame. Yeah, but I don't know, man. It's really only been. I mean, I guess they've kind of always been a competitor of of Guitar Centers, but I mean, Indy's. You guys may not know this, but Indianapolis is actually a pretty big Guitar Center hub. Um, there's a big warehouse, big Guitar Center warehouse here in the Indianapolis area, and that's the warehouse that supplies all the stores nationwide. And it is a big ass warehouse, and there's also some corporate office stuff in there, and there's also a call center office, a contact center, like all the musicians' friend stuff. Et cetera, et cetera, all worked out of there, and most of those people working from home now, but but technically, the office is still here. That's how they consider it. So, Indianapolis is a big hub for Guitar Center. So I suspect that Sweetwater may have wanted to stay away from Indianapolis for that reason. I don't know. But it also, who knows, man? It's also may have been, I don't know, I'm not familiar with Sweetwater's history, but, I mean, they could have just started as a small mom and pop shop in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and, it grew to what they are now. Uh, Chuck, I forgot his last name, but, the owner of Sweetwater, he doesn't just own Sweetwater. I mean, he owns car dealerships and restaurants. I mean, he's a pretty wealthy dude, and he's got his hands in a lot of different stuff up in the Fort Wayne area. There's people in Fort Wayne that work for Chuck that don't know they work for Chuck because he owns so much of it. So, but he's also done a lot for the local music scene up there too, I understand. So, oops. let's see, Mitchell. So I've seen a lot of those crate amps at the pawn shop. I got a nice Warlock out of there, and it's better than my Ibanez. I haven't been pawn shopping in a while. I should go do that. Probably, maybe not anytime soon, but, but yeah. Martian Murray says Virginia Beach got expensive. I heard. I think that it might be. Well, there's Jim addressing that because he lives in that area. It says you can still buy a nice house for a decent price. You just don't live in Virginia Beach proper. Chesapeake is a 15-minute drive, and I like quiet. What is the? I mean, is Virginia Beach like the big hustle and bustle town out there, as opposed to Chesapeake and I forgot what the other. There's another. Shit. I can't remember what the third city in that area is. That's pretty well known. Norfolk. Maybe Norfolk's the big one I'm thinking of. And I guess Newport News isn't too far from there either. Right across the bay. Norfolk, Portsmouth. Hampton Roads is the collective name. Okay. Eames Guitar Shack says I applied for the GC in Brownsburg. Had a brief interview. I guess I wasn't their guy. Depends on what the what the position was that you're applying for. But I don't know. I don't know what their hiring process is these days. I don't know how stringent it is. If they're, they kind of seem to go in spurts, and I think a lot of it may just depend on the time of the year. Like when I got hired the first time in 2008. I got hired in for the, as the part of the, back then they used to hire in, they pretty much bring in just about anybody that could fog a mirror, leading up into the holidays, because there was the time of year when it was assholes and elbows, and, they needed bodies, and, the ones that actually turned out to be, good hires were the ones that stuck around, and everybody else, the ones that, that weren't good hires and just proved that they were good enough to fog a mirror, always seemed to kind of weed themselves out. I was part of that crowd of people. The manager that hired me went on to later on tell me that I was one of the best hires that he ever made. And he and I are still friends today. But things have changed. They don't do that anymore. And the foot traffic at the stores isn't what it used to be either. I was in my local store here the other day, and the skeleton crews that they're being forced to run on right now is insane. Like, really insane. I can't believe they're, there's no way we could have operated back then on what they have to work with now. There's no way. Jeffrey Albright says, what do you think of Heritage Guitars versus Gibson on quality? As far as quality goes, honestly, I think they're really similar. I think Gibson is still kind of, unfairly getting a bad rap. For the longest time, they were putting out dog shit for guitars. There was chances, there was like two or three. You had to buy. There was times that I would have to, that I'd sell somebody a Gibson and I'd have to exchange it half a dozen times until they finally got a good one. They went. It was there for from about 2008 until about let's see, when did they get bought and all that stuff? I think bankruptcy, I think it was 2018 or 2019, something like that. I think it was I think it was 2019 when the new CEO came in, or I don't remember what year it was. I think it was 2019. Um, some people will say it even went before, it was going on before 2008. But 2008 is like the first year that I really started to notice the decline. Um, but I think that most of the Gibsons I've gotten my hands on here in the last couple of years, most of them have all been pretty solid. You know, like I said in that video a couple of weeks ago, yeah, they made a few boneheaded maneuvers, uh, particularly with marketing the last couple of years. They brought back that stupid tulip thing. I don't even remember the name of it, but um, they so I mean they've they're not perfect, and I think and they will. I'm pretty sure they will even tell you that they're not perfect, but they've improved quite a bit. I still encourage you to go down to your local guitar shop, whoever sells Gibsons, pull one or two or three of them off the wall and take a look at them. And see what they're. I'm not talking about I can get this same guitar in this brand for for $1,500 cheaper, or I'm not talking about that kind of shit. Or the book matching on PRS was 10 times better than it is on. I'm not talking about that either. I'm talking about just standard quality. The guitar that you're holding, is it a good serviceable instrument? That's what I'm driving at. There's so much there for when it comes to Gibson's quality. People seem to think that I've discovered this in the last couple of weeks. People seem to think that that I don't know if it's a placebo effect of some kind, but they hear Gibson and all of a sudden they start ranting and raving and lawsuits and all this stuff. And I'm not denying any of that. But the fact of the matter is, when you pull a Gibson guitar down off the wall, is it playable? Is it is it operating the way it's supposed to be? Is there any major finish flaws in it? Is there any major construction flaws in it? Um, you know Stuff like that. Is the nut cut properly, or is it, for the most part, is it in good shape? It doesn't really need anything except for some minor setup work that pretty much any guitar is going to need. That's what I'm talking about. So, now to answer your question, compared to Heritage, Heritage might still be a little bit more consistent, but they don't crank out as many guitars as Gibson does either. And they operate on a much smaller, much smaller staff at that factory than Gibson does. So, quality wise, yeah, I mean, Heritage might be a little bit more consistent, but they're selling for about the same price nowadays anymore. So, Jim Woodard says they've talked about opening a new GC in Newport News. We have Virginia Beach, Midlothian, and Richmond now. Not to mention all the ones that you got up in the DC area. There's 3 or 4 of them up there, at least. Why did the robot Les Paul get so much hate? Realistically, I mean, guitar players just, and I kind of feel the same way. Guitar players just want to still be able to tune their own guitar. You know, trusting a robot to do it, particularly in a professional situation. Recording, playing out live, trusting this robot tuner thing that it's actually going to work right and do its job is, because if it doesn't do its job, you're going to find out the hard way. you know so I understand why people's skepticism. I mean, that's just it was a boneheaded idea that nobody was asking for. It was a boneheaded idea of Henry's that nobody was asking for. Nobody said, I wouldn't. I wish I had a guitar to tune it. So, nobody was fucking wishing for that. It's not like tuning a guitar is any arduous task. So, especially for a guitar player. I remember when those robots, the first, the first run. Let's say there was the first run of the robots and the Dust Tigers, and then the what was the one that came after that? The Dark something or other. Dark something. I can't remember the name of it. Looked really really cool, and it was just a total flop. Yeah, they got better every time. I'll give them that, but they're still no. Eventually, they came out with though the what do they call those things? The G Force tuners or whatever they are. Where you could actually they're actually interchangeable. So I guess maybe when that that might have made it a little bit more that those made a little bit more sense because you could take them off and replace them with a regular set of tuners, I guess. But I think eventually they ended up doing away with those too. Yeah, Gibson's done a lot about. They've gone back in the right direction in a lot of ways. They're not. They finally quit putting out guitars that had all the shit on it that nobody wanted. Nobody gave a shit about robot tuners or nobody wanted PCB potentiometers and stuff like that. Gary Shelley's here says, "Hey Robert, I don't hear you talk much about ESP LTD, especially LTD. You're not a fan, just curious. ESPs I like, LTDs are okay. I mean, I it's not that I don't like LTDs. I mean, they're I mean they're like Epiphone. They make fine guitars, nothing wrong with them. But if I'm buying something from that brand, it needs to be an ESP. Just for my purposes. Now, if I were younger and didn't have as much much flexible spending as I do now. Not that I don't have a lot of flexible spending right now. I'm unemployed, but ability to buy higher end instruments, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, LTDs are great guitars. I got nothing against LTDs at all. But for me, I prefer the ESP line myself. If you compare an LTD EC1000 to an actual ESP Eclipse, the Eclipse, the body thickness is about a quarter to a half inch thicker than the LTD. And you can see where they cut the corner on that particular model. And it does translate into a tonal difference in my opinion. So, no, nothing. I like that brand just fine. But they're just I don't know. I've never despite the fact that I've always been a diehard Metallica fan. I've just never gravitated towards them for some reason. Some of your reviews remind me of the early AVGN reviews. I have no idea what that is, so I assume that's a compliment. I'll take it as a compliment, I guess. The robot tuner can also be tuned manually by pulling up on the keys. Yes, it can, but at that point, then what's the point of having robot tuners? You know, if there's a manual, if you got that seems like a fail safe, in case the robot thing, doesn't quit doing what it's supposed to do. Yeah, I'm not. They're not for me. I don't want any robot shit on my guitars. Not only would I like a self-tuning guitar, but I wish it could self-change strings. I'm not going to argue with you there. They should make a guitar that asks for a drink, makes coffee, and cleans up the room when I'm done. EC1000 are great. Seriously, I've been on the fence about buying one. About buying the Amber one again with the Duncan JB59 pickups. Yeah, and to be honest, I've come close to buying that guitar a few times myself. There's some really really cool ones out there that I've seen, really cool finishes, and among other things. I like those guitars. It just to me it makes more sense to to get up into the ESP line. What's a EC1000 selling for nowadays? 1300 bucks. Even the E2s are, which I think are still made in Japan. Even the E2 guitars are not that much more. So, to me, it makes more sense to just spend a little bit more money to get the ESP brand. I know not necessarily for any clips, but pardon me. Is BFDI a worse addiction or chasing cats worse? There's a question I've never been asked before. Huh. Interesting. I guess I would first need to know what BFDI is. Gary Shelley says that's always my complaint with LTD. Make them full thickness. Damn it. Yeah, absolutely. At least Epiphone does that right. An Epiphone Les Paul spec wise is not that much different from a Gibson. At least all the measurements are about the same. Jeff7 said had an LTD Jeff Hanneman model and it was bitching. Buddy of mine actually had one of Jeff's actual custom shop ESPs, and he brought it in about 10 years ago. I can't. It may have been my last year at the store. He brought it in. Seeing if we wanted to buy it from him, and and I looked at up and down and left and right trying to figure out what to offer this guitar, because one thing about Guitar Center, they're not in the memorabilia business. So it's this particular one may have had the provenance of being owned by owned and played by Jeff Hanneman, but for Guitar Center's purposes, really kind of had to sell it as a just a custom shop ESP. So we were too far apart and I couldn't get it, but there was two of them actually, because the buddy of mine that brought him in knew Jeff Hanneman's former guitar tech, who also passed away, and that's where he got them. And they were cool. There was some serious mojo going on with those guitars, man. They were badass. I'd love to have them. Jeff Hanneman's wife got word, because I actually called ESP trying to figure out what these things were worth, trying to get a value on them, and they told me that they were one of a kind, et cetera, et cetera. They were built specifically for Jeff. Well, apparently after I talked to ESP, they got on the phone with Jeff Hanneman's wife. She called me up on the next day wanting to know, where the fuck these guitars came from, this, that, and the other, and and I'm like, it put me in a really weird position. I mean, I know they weren't acquired illegally, by any means, but it was an interesting conversation. Jeffrey Albright says, did you see BC Rich guitars are revamping and coming out with some nice looking higher end guitars again? Your thoughts? I have actually heard the opposite, to be honest. My understanding is they haven't paid their, paid the importer, or not the importer, but paid the company that's building their imports, and they owe that company a lot of money, and they're in they're in some deep shit at the moment. Um, I've not dug into the details of all that fully, but if they're making more high end guitars, that's very, very strange to me, given given the news about them that was going around the campfire just a couple of weeks ago. So. Robert, I love watching you. You brought me good luck. I just found the title for my car. I've been looking for 10 years. Heading to the DMV. Well, good luck, man. Glad I could help. Robert, do you have any experience with Ed Roman when he was alive? No, thank God. No. Yeah, most people are diehard BC Rich people like me. We're not Ed Roman fans. He did a lot of harm to, did a lot of harm to the brand. And he honestly hijacked a lot of designs and a lot of guitars. Really, it's too bad. What's up, Robert? Just got two Charvels for the price of one, made in Japan, Jackson Rhodes. Couldn't be happier with that decision. First time playing a Charvel and super blown away again. Awesome, man. That's especially if you got two Charvels. I don't know if I'm reading that right. It looks like you traded a MIJ Jackson RR5 or something, I'm assuming, for two Charvels. Cool. Yeah. Get nothing wrong with that, man. Trade a guitar, get two back. So, all right, guys, we've been at this for about an hour, and I've got a few other things I need to tackle here this afternoon. So, I'm gonna call it quits, and yeah, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and don't forget to check out the video tomorrow. Adios.